How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And for this video, I'm sitting in the 2019 Nissan Altima SV, the front-wheel drive version. Front-wheel drive because this is the first year that Nissan is offering the all-wheel drive version on their Altimas. Nissan has kindly provided me with this unit to test out for a week, so I'm going to give you my impressions of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2019 Nissan Altima SV. So here we go. Now, if you're just getting into the Nissan lineup, it can be a little bit confusing because there's so many different trims to choose from. They first start out with the S trim. Now, think about this as your base trim. So just because it's base doesn't mean that it's lacking a lot of features. The base trim is actually already filled with a lot of nice interior features and some safety features, which I'll go over a little bit later on. When you move up from the S trim, you get into the SR trim. Now think of this as your more sporty trim. So think of R as in racing, but this isn't really a sports car, but still you get paddle shifters and you also get a more aggressive looking 19-inch wheels and sport tuned suspension. And after SR, you get the SV trim, which is what I'm sitting in. And think of SV as having more bells and whistles compared to your S trim. This has the Pro Pilot Assist, and it has a lot of other safety features and some self-driving technologies, though it's not really self-driving, but a lot of those technologies that are packed into the SV trim, which are really nice. And then after the SV trim, you move into the SL. Now think of SL as your luxury trim. SL means you get the leather surfaces and you also get a nicer stereo equipment from Bose. And then after SL, you get the Platinum. So the Platinum is basically your top of the line. And what's nice about the Platinum trim is you also get the Nissan Around View camera system. Now that is a parking system that stitches 4 different images around your car to give you a 360-degree view. And then finally you have the Edition 1. Now Edition 1 means that it's the first year of the 6th generation Altima. And Edition 1 means that you get special looking wheels, some special badging, marking that you are one of the first buyers of the very first 6th generation Altima. Alright, let's get right down to it. Let's first start off with the good of the 2019 Nissan Altima. And the first thing I like about this car is the Pro Pilot Assist. Now, like I mentioned before, the Pro Pilot Assist becomes available starting at the SV trim. The Pro Pilot Assist is basically a slew of Nissan technologies and sensors that aid the driver in driving. So there's sensors like the blind spot assistance, there's emergency braking with pedestrian detection, there's lane keep assist, there's steering wheel assist, there's cross traffic alert. There's a bunch of different sensors that basically give you kind of like a 360-degree sense of everything that's going on around you. So without getting into all the different technical details about all the different sensors within the Pro Pilot Assist, what that means for the driver is that when I press this blue Pro Pilot Assist button and I set it, basically it allows me to have cruise control and lets me follow the car in front of me with a specified amount of distance. It'll also help center me on the road because the lane keep assist has been turned on, and the steering wheel assist will actually steer itself through gentle curves. So there's going to be a little chime that shows that the lanes are green, which means that yes, it can sense the lanes around you and you can somehow let the car kind of steer itself. Now this is a little bit clumsy at times. It's not perfect because no automated system is really foolproof, but you can really see where the technology is going. Now this isn't as good as Tesla's autopilot system. This still requires you to have a lot of driving inputs, but this is still perfect for those long drives when you're on the highway. You could just leave the system turned on and all of those braking and pedal inputs and also the minor steering inputs can be automated, so that reduces driver fatigue, and it'll also help you pay attention to the more important things that's going on around the roads. Now, along the same vein of the Pro Pilot Assist, I have to talk about the standard safety features about this car. Now, depending on which trim that you get, you could get more safety features available for you. Starting with the S trim, you get the forward collision warning and also the automatic emergency braking. Now, when you move up to the SR trims or higher, now you open yourself up to more safety features like blind spot assistance and also rear cross traffic alert. And what I like about the blind spot assistance in this car is that the blind spot warning light has been moved right next to your A-pillar and not on your side view mirrors. Sometimes those lights are covered up by all the gunk that you have outside. And the rear cross traffic alert is also nice for when you're backing out, because your camera doesn't really give you a 180-degree field of view. So the radar-based system is going to tell you when cars are coming at a high rate of speed crossing your path as you're trying to back up. And when you move up to the SV trims or higher, that's when you start to unlock all of the other safety features like the lane keep assist, or what Nissan calls the intelligent lane departure. So that is a system critical for the ProPilot Assist function to work. In addition to that, you also get the automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, and also there's rear automatic braking, so when you're backing up into a spot, the vehicle will slowly apply the brakes for you. The next good thing I like about this car is the drivetrain. I like the 2.5 liter engine and also the CVT. Now, starting with the engine, this is a 2.5 liter inline 4. It produces 188 horsepower and 180 pound-feet of torque. Now, that isn't really a lot of power. Let's just say it's enough for this midsize sedan. It's enough for you to go around, if you ever want to pass someone on the highway, you could really do that pretty easily. But you're not going to be winning any races with this car. Again, this is not a sports car. But with a 188 horsepower engine, you get efficiency. You get about 29 city and 39 highway for the front-wheel drive version, and you get about 32 mixed driving. And with the all-wheel drive version, since there's more rotating components, you get 26 city and 36 highway with 30 combined. Now, that is really good efficiency, and that's really thanks to a couple different things. First, starting at the engine, this is a direct injected engine. It sprays fuel at high pressures directly into the chambers. You get a more clean and more thorough burn in the cylinders. That gives you more torque and also better efficiency. And attached to the engine, the reason for why the mileage is fairly high is the CVT. CVT stands for continuously variable transmission. Instead of physical gears, you have a drive belt attached to two conical pulleys that allows you to have basically infinite gearing ratios. There are shift points that's been programmed in. Now, I'm normally not a fan of CVTs because I consider them to be not very responsive, and also it sounds kind of strange because when you step on it, there's usually a loud whirring sound and not a lot of power production. But for the 2019 Nissan Altima, it seems like the engineers have tuned this just slightly so that it feels a lot better. It feels like a more traditional automatic. The automatic transmissions that's found in a lot of FCA cars, some of the dual clutches in Hyundais, they have better response times than this. But again, for all of your commuting needs, a CVT, especially attached to this pretty torquey engine for its size, is good enough. Now, the other good thing about this car, not specifically this car because the features that I'm about to talk about isn't available in this car, but for 2019, all-wheel drive is finally available for the Nissan Altima. Now, that is a front-wheel drive based all-wheel drive system, so when you're just cruising, it's going to be 100% to the front wheels, but when you actually need it, it can actually send 50% of the torque to the rear axles. So it'll help you get going through snowy conditions. But again, I have to remind you, because of all the snow that's around here, just because you have all-wheel drive does not mean you could stop better. So just a public service announcement out there, buy your winter tires. The other thing I like about the Nissan Altima platform is the VC Turbo. What that means, what that VC stands for, is variable compression. Now, this is a big technological leap in terms of internal combustion engines. So all of those pure electric cars out there, just hold it for a second, because you're not really just the next generation just yet. This is like the next generation for internal combustion engines, and it is a big technological leap, something that a lot of different manufacturers have been working on for the past 20 years, but Nissan is really the first company really bold enough to kind of put it into production. And this engine is first found in the QX50 Infiniti, and the Nissan Altima is the first Nissan to have the VC turbo. What that means in a nutshell is that you get more power and more efficiency out of a smaller engine. Now, technically speaking, there's a lot to go over, and this is really fascinating stuff, because instead of a typical piston, connecting rod, and crankshaft, you get additional linkages on this thing. You have a new link, you have an eccentric basically, and you have a new electric motor that rotates these linkages to help the pistons travel up and down a little bit further depending on your driving situations. So what that means is that you can get a compression ratio that varies from 8:1 to 14:1. So when you need the power, you could go into a low compression mode, the 8:1, and when you're cruising, you're in a high compression ratio mode, which basically is tuned more for efficiency driving. So if you get the Nissan Altima with the VC turbo engine, you can get 248 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque. Now that is less power, but a little bit more torque than the outgoing 3.5 liter V6, which is no longer offered for the 2019 model years. Another good thing about this Nissan Altima that I like is the interior design. I'm a big fan of this 8-inch touchscreen, and apparently this is available in all Nissan Altimas. This 8-inch unit looks very upscale, and I like the fact that you can get this at the base S trim. Looking around too, you see a lot of long, sleek, and continuous lines. That seems to be the new design language of interior car design. It looks somewhat German, where again you see like long continuous lines from the left to the right hand side. It makes the car visually look larger, and it also looks simple but still very elegant. And along the lines of simplicity, I like how there's very few buttons, or the buttons that are there is kind of concealed with the whole design language. But one of the important buttons that I like is especially since it's very cold around here now, is the heated seats and the heated steering wheel buttons. It's front and center, it's very accessible, it's not hidden in some sort of infotainment menu somewhere. I could easily just turn it on and off with the push of a button. And when you're looking at the steering wheel, which is a D-shaped steering wheel, which means that it's more of a sporty oriented steering wheel. I'm not really sure why, given that this isn't the sporty trim or really a sporty car in general, but there you have it. The button layout in the steering wheel, it makes a lot of sense, and to the point where once you're used to it, you can kind of like not even look at what you're pressing and you know what you're pressing just because the textures are right. And when you look over to the left hand side, you see the steering wheel assist button. Again, that's a feature used in the Pro Pilot Assist. It's there to help you correct the steering so that you stay in the center of the road. Again, it's kind of a weird feeling because when you're driving through gentle curves, the car will kind of steer itself. And if you don't touch the steering wheel after a while, it will give you a warning and eventually turn off the system, because it's there to warn you that, hey, I'm here to assist you in driving, not to drive the car by itself. So you do have to have driver input every once in a while so that it ensures that you pay attention to the road and you are in control of your own destiny. And then looking around the rest of the interior, you have fantastic zero-gravity seats. This is 8-way adjustable, which is nice, so you can just get it just right to whatever you're comfortable with. And then up here you have a very functional sunroof. And in terms of cargo capacity, there is so much room in here. And especially when you fold down the 60-40 split back seats, you get a lot more cargo space. And when you look below the HVAC controls, you'll find 2 USB connections, a standard USB, and also a USB-C connection. So all of your new Android devices and also some of your newer MacBooks and iPad Pros all use USB-C connections, so that's a pretty handy feature to have here in the car. So I've talked enough about the good. Let's start talking about the bad parts of this car. Now, I'm sitting in the SV trim, so that means that I don't have paddle shifters, which is okay, but sometimes I still like to shift my own gears, even though there's not really gears in a CVT. And normally in a automatic car, if you don't have paddle shifters, you have a gear lever that you could shift to the left-hand side, and then you could nudge it upwards or downwards to change the gears. In here, there's no such case. Instead, you get this little button right behind the gear lever, which is located a little bit in an odd place, but that essentially is your sport button. It puts the car into sport mode, and it changes the whole shift points. It basically gives you the sensation that you just downshifted a gear. So maybe that's why there's a negative sign on there. And but there's only a negative sign. There's no plus sign, so you can't upshift or anything like that. You can basically just take yourself into and out of sport mode. So someone who's just getting into this car and is just not used to it, they might see, oh, that's my downshift button, but I can only downshift once. So again, not really a big thing, but you know, for someone who wants to kind of be more engaged in their driving, you do want to downshift and upshift every once in a while yourself. In this car, you could only sort of downshift once, or really just put yourself into sport mode. The other bad thing I don't like about the Nissan Altima is how they've kind of split the different trims to the different packages that you can get. So again, like for instance, the paddle shifters is only available in the SR based trims. Other features like the Nissan Around View camera system, again, that's the camera system that stitches 4 different images from your front bumper, the cameras underneath the side view mirrors, and also your backup camera to give you that 360-degree view of everything around you. That is only available in the Platinum version. So if you want to get the SV trim or the SR trim, because you want paddle shifters and also that camera view, you can't really have it right now, at least for the 2019 model years. The other bad thing is the VC turbo trim is only available for front-wheel drive. Now, Nissan has said that if there's enough demand for it, they will make it available for the all-wheel drive trim. But currently, if you want 248 horsepower and 280 pound-feet of torque, you can only send those to the front wheels. And the last bad thing I have to say about the 2019 Nissan Altima is the exterior design. It's just so looking. There's really nothing groundbreaking with this car. There is the floating roof design. There is the new V-motion grille that's very prominent in the front bumper. But everything else is just so plain. I remember in 2011, Hyundai came out with a totally redesigned Hyundai Sonata, and that design basically turned the design world upside down, because it showed that, hey, here's this Korean company that kind of came out of nowhere, and they were able to design a drastically different looking car. Now that car in hindsight looks very plain, of course, but with the 2019 Nissan Altima, they didn't really break any new ground in terms of exterior design. There's really nothing that looks so interesting. What the exterior shape of this car is really designed for is to really blend into society very well. Now, don't get me wrong, this is still a nicely looking designed vehicle, but when it's compared to the newly designed Camry and also the Honda Accord, which are the best sellers in the midsize sedan realm, it just, in my book, it just doesn't compete as well. Alright, so I've talked about the good and I've talked about the bad. Let's talk about the ugly. And the ugly thing about this car is, you know, this is really just personal opinion. Feel free to tell me that I'm wrong. And I'm not normally one to kind of comment on a car's color, but I really dislike the super black paint finish on this exact car that I'm sitting in. Now, I am normally a fan of these monochrome color spectrums, you know, like your whites, grays, your blacks, but I really don't like this super black trim because it really obscures a lot of the more interesting design features of the exterior design of the Nissan Altima. So for instance, the V-motion grille up front, it's become obscured because the rest of the paint is black. So if you look around the V-Motion grille, there's actually a black trim around it, and when you kind of surround it with more black paint, it kind of obscures that feature a little bit less. The same thing goes with the whole floating roof design, and that's a design that's found in a lot of different cars, kind of like the Toyota Camry, which you can see a review up here, and also some of the other Toyotas like the Toyota CHR. But the whole floating roof concept is to make a car seem a little bit sleeker by separating the line between the roof and the rest of the body with a black stripe. So with this car, since it's painted black, the only effect that it achieves is that it looks like there's two shades of black on the car. Again, this is all just personal preference, but there are a lot of other colors to choose from, like the red or the blue, and it really accentuates the V-Motion grille and the floating roof concept. So what did you think about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2019 Nissan Altima SV front-wheel drive? Please let me know in the comments below, and if you found this video somewhat helpful or entertaining, please consider giving it a thumbs up and also hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. There's a lot of stuff going on the Shifting Lanes channel. We drive new cars like this 2019 Nissan Altima. We go to a lot of interesting driving events, and we also each have our own project cars. So if you're interested in any of that, in following any of our drives, any of our project cars, please check out the playlists down below. And in addition to subscribing and checking out the playlist, if you feel even more generous, please go over to our Patreon page. That's where you can become a supporter of the Shifting Lanes channel. And you can also check out our Teespring account. And if you're watching this on YouTube on desktop, you can see all the different t-shirts that are for sale down below this video. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up the video right there. I want to thank you again so much for your attention and watching till the very end. My name is Hanson, and I will see you next time.